Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be covering how to use opposition to actually promote the pawn. Now this is a very important situation actually because if we don't know how to do this, even though you have the ability to win the game, this is probably going to be a draw and we don't want to give the chance to win the game. So what we are going to be doing in this position is we want to take the opposition. You see, our king is preventing the opponent's king from coming closer to our pawn. And this is very important because if the opponent's king if this king can get somehow in front of our pawn, then this will become a draw. And I will go over that situation. So after we take the opposition, the opponent's king, let's assume that they want to play as best as they want. They want to stick around to this e file. And they should be going towards this square to prevent this pawn from promoting from that square. So if the black king goes to d6, we are, everybody, able to do two different things right now. First, you can take a direct opposition. But if that happens, we're just repeating the same thing. Right? And we don't want to repeat this because if we have the same position 3 times, due to the repetition rule, it's going to be a draw. So if they actually go to this square, what you want to do is you want to take an opposition horizontally. So you're going to be moving the king to this square. Now, if they go to this square, this is perfect. We can now push our pawn. If they go over here, you can go up, and then we have the ability to promote. But going to this square for black is actually not a very good idea. They can actually go, again, towards the e file. If they are on the e file, we have to think again. If they go to this square, you can just push your king up. And we are trying to get to this square to have this pawn promotion position. Now, if the opponent's king goes to there, you can go up to f6. But let's say they actually go to e7. If they go to e7, again, you want to take the opposition. And if the king goes towards the side, we can move our king towards this side, to the opposite side. And again, we want to take an opposition from there. Now, if the opponent's king takes the opposition, this is totally fine for us. It doesn't really matter in this situation right now who takes the opposition, because our goal is to be able to promote the pawn. And because of our king protecting these 3 squares, our pawn can go these squares safely right now. So we achieved our goal. But we are not protecting the promotion square, which is the e8 square right now. So in order to do that, we will have to move our king up. But there is one slight issue right now, everyone. Even though our king is protecting these 3 squares, if the black king goes down, we are not able to push the pawn. They can just capture. So in this situation, instead of moving our king to d7 right away, what we are going to be doing is we're going to be pushing our pawn. Now, again, there are two good options for the black king, e8 being the best one. If they go to f8, you can move your king to d7. And now we have this golden position, whoops, and we can try to push our pawn to promote. Now, if the king actually goes to e8, we are not, let me calculate. Yeah, we are not going to be pushing the pawn to e6. If we push the pawn to e6, if black king goes to here and we keep pushing it, this actually becomes a stalemate. And I will go over this in the next position as well. So when the opponent's king goes back, everyone, instead of pushing the pawn, we are going to be taking the opposition. And this essentially wins us the game. Now, black king has only 2 options to move the king to, as our king is protecting these 3 squares. And it doesn't really matter which square they go. If they go to this square, you will go to f7. Again, you want to go to this golden square to help promote this pawn. If the king goes to f8, then we go to d7. And again, we are going to be protecting this pawn's journey squares. So after this move, even if the black king goes to f7, it doesn't matter. It is time to push the pawn. Wherever the king goes, we can just promote the pawn into a queen. And now we can actually do the knight shadow technique, right? There's another video on it if you want to review it. So you can do a checkmate very, very quickly like this. So this is how you promote the pawn. If the opponent's king cannot go in front of our pawn, but if they can sit in front of the pawn, then it is going to be a draw if they play correctly. And I will go over that in a second. But make sure, everybody, that you take the opposition, and you want to take a horizontal opposition eventually so that our pawn can go up safely. This is very important. This is one of the essential techniques we need to know in the endgame. And feel free to rewatch this video multiple times, and please practice on an actual chessboard so you don't forget the technique, right? All of these techniques, it will be, well, you will actually learn it if you do it in your own games. Okay, let me make another position. All right, everybody, now we have a different position right now, and in this position, it is white's turn. But you see, everybody, this time our king is not in front of the opponent, our pawn. The opponent's king can actually get right in front of our pawn. So the issue is, we actually cannot successfully promote the pawn if, and this is important, if black makes one specific move. That's why you should still play this as white, even though it is highly to become a draw. But at earlier ages, at beginner level, maybe black might mess it up. Now black should take the opposition, and now we can push our pawn. The black king will go in front of the pawn. We move our king in front of the pawn. And maybe the king will go back. You go over here. We push the pawn. So until this situation right now, it didn't really matter who took the opposition. But this is where things change. Now, black king actually has 4 different squares. And out of these 4 squares, there's only one move that is good for black. You see, everybody, if the black king goes to f6, white can win the game. I'll give you a second to think about it. What is the best move for white to do? So the best move for white to do is not to push the pawn because nothing protects it. It's actually to move the king to take the opposition. Remember, we want to take this opposition horizontally so we are able to promote the pawn. So that's why moving the king to f6 is not a good idea. Now, if the king wants to go to the 8th rank, there are 3 options for this black king. And out of these 3 options, only one of them is good. And everybody, it is the middle one. If the black king goes to the middle one, this is going to become stalemate, again, if black plays correctly. But you should still play this because we don't know if they will mess it up. Now, if the king goes towards the sides, to d8 or f8, this is going to be a win for white because we are the one who takes the opposition right now. By bringing our king to d6, we are taking the opposition to the opponent's king. This is very important because now, if black king goes to e8 to prevent our pawn from promoting, we can gladly move our pawn up. After pawn goes to e7, and there's only one move for the king to go, and you can again take the opposition horizontally, and we want to promote the pawn right now. Now, same thing happens if the king goes to f8, you push the king, and we are going to be pushing the pawn to e7. The king can only go to f7, and we take the opposition again. But let's look into what happens if black plays correctly. If the black king goes to e8, which is the only good move they can do, and we move our king to d6, now, they should actually be moving to d8. This is the only move they can do, because if they go to f8, you can again move your king up. So, if black moves the king to d8, everybody look. This time, black is taking the opposition. Black makes the opposition, and now, if white decides to move the pawn up, and the black king blocks on e8, now, it is white's turn. White can no longer move the pawn, so white has to move the king. And, well, these are all the squares that the king can go. But while we move the king, we should also be protecting this e7 pawn right now. Otherwise, the opponent can just capture it, and there's going to be a draw due to insufficient material. But after the king goes to e8, there is only one move that this king can go to protect this pawn, and that is e6. Now, even though we are taking the opposition, which is something we usually like to do, it is black's turn, and the black king cannot go anywhere safely. So this actually makes a stalemate. If you need a quick refresher on stalemates, there's actually a video on the YouTube page. You can go and check that. Yeah, this is, everybody, how black can make a draw. Now, let me actually show you something. If the black king actually goes to e8, this is again the only good move, because they go to the middle square to make this draw. You can, as white, try to win this by not bringing the king to d6 right away. You can actually make a maneuver with the king this way, and if the black king goes towards the sides, to d8 or f8, then we are now going to be winning, because we are now actually the one who takes the opposition. But again, black can't prevent this. So if we move our king to here to do this triangulation, the opponent's king can actually go to e7 to take the opposition. So if black does this, everybody, this is actually going to be a draw, again, by 3 repetition. So if the opponent's king is in front of our pawn, then technically this is going to be a draw if they play correctly. But again, try to do this as white, because we don't know what they will do. Okay.